a sunlit world of what he believes to be reality. But there is, unseen by most, an underworld, a place that is just as real, but not as brightly lit. A dark side.
Good morning!
Good evening!
Wherever you may be,
Around the world,
you're listening to
Dark Side of Insanity
with Jamie and
James.
Woohoo!
Hello, everybody.
How's everyone doing? Tonight we have a special guest with us. His name is Robert Dominguez. He is a Bigfoot researcher and paranormal investigator. How are you doing tonight, Robert?
I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. It's our pleasure.
So, could you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes. Well, I can say this for sure. I'm doing a predominantly like podcast stuff right now, but I've done Bigfoot stuff since 1999, and I've done paranormal stuff since 2011, and I've kind of slowed down a little bit, but I'm still the admin. I'm the admin for Paranormal Investigations of North Texas, and I kind of lead that. And I kind of, when people reach out to me there, I kind of just kind of assist them and try to get them to get help. And if they're seeking help or seeking some kind of resolution for like a paranormal incident, I kind of assist them on that. So. But that's where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. So, what kind of incidents have you dealt with when dealing with the paranormal?
I usually, it's funny that you say that, because like I got some strange cases, and people reach out to me on the Penn, Texas Facebook group. And there's a couple of them I got, and I wasn't able to hear back for them. One of them was a story of this guy. I believe he was in Killeen, and I think he was on the military base on Killeen. And he reached out to me, and he said that he called me up, and this is back whenever we had Penn, Texas website. He reached out to me on that, and so I called him up, and he was claiming that he just got back from deployment, and he was on base at a housing unit by himself. And I guess he had just got divorced or something. And he had a dog with him, and he was his dog jumped up. He was like in the evening time watching TV or something, and his dog jumped up and ran to the back of the house. So he went back there. He pulled out his service weapon, went to the back, and he thought it was a burglar. And it was this image, or this silhouette, and it was facing, I guess, the back of his room. And it turned around, and it didn't have a face, and it said, "We are many," and then disappeared. So he kind of freaked out.
Oh yeah.
He kind of freaked out, and I guess he went to like a hotel or a motel and emailed me, and that's how he reached out to me. So I called him, and we talked for a little bit, and man, it was like I was trying to help the guy, but he didn't return like any of my calls. So that was kind of odd.
It sounds like it. I wonder if he ever got that figured out.
I kind of feel like he was kind of reluctant to do it because it was on base and he was maybe embarrassed or something. I'm not sure.
That could possibly be. So, have you? I know you do Bigfoot research.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever caught anything, like any sounds?
I think whenever I first started in Bigfoot stuff, and I was with a group called the Texas Bigfoot Research Center, the TBRC. They're now called the North American Great Ape Conservancy, something I forgot, but anyway. But whenever I was with them, we did put a bunch of cameras out. We did put a bunch of audio stuff, and we didn't find we got a bunch of stuff, but it belongs to them, so I don't have it.
Okay.
And whenever I was independent, doing like independent stuff, I did capture a bunch of stuff in the woods, Lamar County, Paris, Texas. That's in East Texas. I did catch a bunch of stuff there, but however, the gentleman that I was on his property for, I was on his property doing it. He asked me not to release anything because he didn't want anybody coming to research on his property. So I didn't. We didn't keep it. So I did catch a bunch of stuff, and it was amazing. It was like we were getting calls, and we were getting. I think a lot of times we were getting like a bunch of mimic calls. So you would hear a horse, and at the very end of the horse, you would hear, and it was like, that was odd. You would hear, so it was, I go, horses don't do that. So,
Right.
so to answer your question, Jamie, yeah, I did catch some stuff, but I'm not allowed to share it because I promised this guy, and he's already passed on, that I would not do it. So I'm not going to do it.
Understandable.
So, have you caught any other evidence, like video or footprints or like tangible stuff besides just sounds?
Yeah. Actually, like I was saying, when I was with the TBRC, that was our goal was to document and to verify and to prove this animal existed, like in East Texas, and that was our goal. And I was all aboard on that, and this was like in '99 to 2003. I left the group in 2003 and decided to go on my own. The group was doing stuff that I didn't agree with, so I left. And once I left and did like independent stuff, I changed a little bit. So I no longer cared about documenting stuff. I cared more about helping people. So because, I mean, let's face it, there's some people like in East Texas who see this animal and they don't know what to do. I mean, why are they seeing it? If they talk to a spouse and they don't believe them, and they talk to, local law enforcement, they don't believe them, they don't have nowhere to go. So there was a lot of people who needed help. So I reached out to a lot of people, and people reached out to me too, and I would just help them deal with it and kind of go from there. So.
Okay. There's some people and a lot of theories that say that Bigfoot is not a flesh and blood creature, that it's like extra dimensional, that they see them after they see like UFOs, and that they just pop in and out of our reality. Do you think that that could be a possibility, or do you believe that it's just a flesh and blood creature that only some people have actually seen?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Again, like I said, whenever I first joined the TBRC, that was the old school way of thinking of stuff. That's what I'm gonna name drop Luke Rose. He's my mentor. And he was the one that helped start at TBRC, and he'll tell you this if you ever get to talk to him. He'll tell you like the exact same thing I'm about to say. When we first got into Bigfoot, like in '99, he was into Bigfoot before I was, and by the time we formed the group, the TBRC, that was our our motto was that Bigfoot was flesh and blood, and that was it. And so anybody that came to us with a story about portals or dimensions or shape shifting, we just cut them off. We said no, don't want to hear it. But as I left the group in '03, and then I started doing my own independent research and talking to people, because like whenever you're with a group, you're kind of only allowed to talk to certain groups of people or witness people, and that's it.
Right.
So when you're like an independent, you can go wherever you want, talk to whoever you want. So I talked to a lot of Native American people in Oklahoma and Texas, and they actually believe that that this creature is part of the earth and part of the earth spirit and the earth tree and all that stuff. So I'm more open to it now.
Okay.
Before I wasn't, but now I am, because I mean I've talked to so many people and gotten so many stories on portals and shape shifting, and I can't prove it. It's like conjecture. I can't prove it, but I can just take the story and just go with it.
Right. So, getting to like the Native American backstories, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming, since you do research on them, you know probably quite a bit about some of the Native American stories, like how long back did the stories come from and things like that. So how long ago do you think the people actually started having eyewitness accounts of Bigfoot?
Are you talking about North America in general, or you like Texas in general?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
there's I did a show on my podcast, Bigfoot Club podcast, about Vikings coming across. I'm gonna totally spaz on this. I'm not gonna remember what year it was, but it was 100 years before Christopher Columbus. And Vikings from Greenland came over to North America, and they ran into, they say, what they call like a Bigfoot. And they actually did talk to Native Americans. So Native Americans were telling them that that this entity or this being was around. So I mean, it dates back like before Columbus.
Okay. So, let's see. There's stories from all around the world. You have like the Himalayan Yeti. I think it's the Australian Yowie.
Yowie, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think they're all the same creature, or do you think that maybe they're just related in some way?
That's actually a really good question. I think they're related. Aware, because like most of the stuff I've done in East Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, the Bigfoots here are they range from different sizes, but they go from 300 to 500 pounds and 7 feet tall. And I hear there's some stories in like Pacific Northwest that they're 8 to 9 feet tall, 900 pounds, and then I hear the Yeti's even bigger. So I mean. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't read that much about Yowie, but it's a different continent, so I'm just going to assume it's a different breed, and so that's actually a really good question, though.
Definitely. I personally, I think it was 2 months ago, had my own experience. We live
really,
yeah. We live in like northeast Alabama, so I was actually outside of our camper, and we've got like the edge of like I wouldn't say forest, but I mean
it's nothing
really
but
is.
woods, basically.
Yeah.
And I could have sworn, because it was nighttime, I didn't see like any creature or nothing, but I don't think it was a deer that did it. All the way from one side of the woods to like the other side, which probably is 100 yards, I heard something running through them, and the big trees, I mean like 6-7 inches or more, and I could see the tops of them just swaying back and forth as something was running through there. That's
swaying back and forth.
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually a telltale sign because most of the stories that I've talked to, and if your listeners listen to our podcast, the Bigfoot Club podcast, there's a couple stories of a gentleman seeing a Bigfoot in Longview, Texas, and before he told me the story, when this thing popped out, I asked him, I said, "Was it swaying back and forth?" And he goes, "Yes, it was." I go, "Did it show you its teeth?" He goes, "Yes." He goes, "Man, were you there?" And that's just a telltale sign because I'm assuming they do that because the displacement of their weight whenever they're walking.
Yeah, it's like even I'm like in disbelief whenever I saw it. I'm like, no, it's just a deer or something like that. I'm like, no, a deer can't really move trees like that.
Yeah, what was this at again?
Northeast Alabama.
Okay. Not Bankhead National Forest, right?
No.
No, not that I know of.
No, this is near Fort Payne.
Okay. Okay, I was just looking on the map, just trying to get an idea. So anyway, I get. Let's see, you got me into research mode already. so, oh man, I did listen to your BFRO
5 years ago, it burned down. But when they was first building it, my grandmother had smelled something like a skunk out here.
Yeah.
And it was funny the way she said it. She said that, she thought it was a panther or a Sasquatch. I can't do it her way. It's just hard to read too.
Yeah.
But
So
she said,
she was building it out. She was building it out.
What now?
She was building the house there, and then what else happened?
There was something that started coming like a strong odor. And she turned around, and it looked like it was about 8 feet tall. And next thing you know, all the kids run into the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you know what year this was?
I don't know that one.
The 80s, maybe?
It was probably later than that because my mom was born.
Okay.
1981 or 2, 1982.
Yeah, that's actually pretty common. That's actually pretty common. Whenever you're building out onto a land, and Bigfoots are not used to it, they'll come out and they'll see what's going on. And I did have a story once when I moved up to Tulsa from 2009 to 2011, and I did have a story in the east part of between Tulsa and I think that's Kansas City, and there was a story of this lady reached out to me. And she said that she had gotten this land from was it was inheritance or something, and so she was building a house there, and so she had a mobile home that she set up in this part of this area, and it was really rural. And she said in the middle of the night, a Bigfoot would come and slap on the mobile home, in the middle of the night. And at first she didn't know it was a Bigfoot. She didn't know what was going on. And, she would go outside and look. And I think her husband was like a warehouse guy. He worked at night, so he wasn't there. And so she was her mobile home was getting slapped in the middle of the night. And she didn't know what to do. So she reached out to me in Tulsa. And she says, hey, I don't know what to do. And I'm thinking it's like a Bigfoot. So I asked her for the address and I looked it up, and it was really rural in the area. So I asked her, I go, is there a Walmart by you? And she goes, yeah. I said, go there and buy game trackers, buy some game trackers, buy some poles, put them around your house and just face them toward the woods all around your house, and you won't see it again. So that was the theory that I had, is that these Bigfoots were avoiding game trackers. And so to go off your story about the Bigfoot coming when your grandmother was building the house, that's common. That's common. So that's interesting.
she realized that they was building it on something's property.
Yeah.
Because she told me that, and she said, well, that screaming you told me about that you heard, she said that reminded me of that story that happened to me when I was younger, way younger.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I've heard screams sitting on the front porch at my grandmother's trailer.
Man, but I think my mom told me a similar story. She used to pick vegetables when she was younger, and this was like, I don't know, like 1940s maybe, late 40s, early 50s, and my mom had told me a story about her and my grandfather went up to Indiana, and it was called Indiana Harbor.
Yeah.
And they were picking parsley, and I think I want to say parsley and broccoli, I think. And my mom was telling me this story, and she told me that they heard like a roar, like in the woods, coming toward them, and all the workers there were all Spanish, and so they were all yelling "oso." Oso means bear, and so everybody got in their vehicles and took off. And I go, "Did you see this bear?" And she goes, "No." And I go, "Mom, I go, bears don't vocalize like that unless you run into them. I go, if bears don't see you, they're not going to vocalize. They're not going to scream." I go, "I think you had a Bigfoot stuff." And so she goes, "Really?" My mom goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "What else was going on?" She goes, this bear was like shaking trees. I said, "Bears don't do that." I go, "Bigfoots do." So my mom didn't know it. In the 40s, she had like a Bigfoot incident. So.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? So going off each other's stories about moms and stuff, that's kind of awesome. I love that.
Definitely. So, besides Bigfoot, you also do paranormal investigation. Does that include ghosts or spirits or other kinds of paranormal encounters?
Yes, it's a funny story because actually I was doing Bigfoot, like I was telling you, I was doing Bigfoot stuff in the early 90s, and I left the group in 2003, and I was doing my own stuff from 2003 to 2011, and I was recruited by Kendall Wilkerson. She's actually the founder of Paranormal Investigations of North Texas. And she recruited me, I guess, because she needed a seasoned researcher, and she was forming this group. And I've always been interested in paranormal. I just didn't know where to go or where to look or who to talk to. And, I was going into chat rooms and stuff. And so she recruited me, I guess, because she saw me on some website or something. And so she asked me if I wanted to. She saw I was in North Texas. She's in North Texas as well. And so she reached out to me, and we ended up forming Penn, Texas, and she made me like the case director. And so right away I was like thrown in, and I was doing research out. We actually researched it's called, I can't, I'm gonna spaz on this again too. There's a hotel in downtown Dallas. It's called the Lawrence Hotel. Okay, it's called the Lawrence Hotel, but it's called something else now. I don't know what it's called, so I forgot. So but we actually did it like 3 weeks before Ghost Lab did on the Discovery Channel. And we actually got more evidence than those guys did. So it was kind of cool. But normally we would do like big places like a hotel or a warehouse. But our bread and butter was like families. So if a family had an incident, especially if it involves children, we would jump them up really high and do them like right away. And but we did do some residential stuff and some stuff that was we debunked, and some stuff that we would figure out. We would try to document what was going on in their house, whether we thought it was demonic or just residual or whatever. And if they wanted help, we had a group of people that would stand by. Like we had like a priest, we had like a reverend, and we had like a rabbi, and somebody in Reiki and stuff. So we had we had like a lot of help. So whenever someone wanted to get cleansed or something like that, so that's the route that we end up taking.
Okay. So how often would you come across something demonic, or would it be just like spirits that might have been like trapped here or just haven't moved on, or maybe it was like a residual haunting?
Yeah. You know, I personally haven't dealt with anything demonic. But most of the stuff that I've run into has mostly been like you said, residual, or just like, I think most of the cases I end up doing was somebody that's not knowing that they're like a conduit, you know, someone who attracts spirits and entities. And like we would like research like some people's houses. I can't give out people's names and stuff, but we would actually research some people's houses, and like we wouldn't find any history of like deaths on the property or anything like that, or anything on the grounds. And we finally concluded it was like one of the members of the family actually was like an antenna for spirits. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and just like it just happens that way. So
definitely. So how much research do you do in a place before you go in and investigate?
I try to do the best, because that's the part of the stuff that I love. I love doing background checks. I love doing research on someone's property. And I know I talked about this on Crazy Cat Paranormal podcast. But I would go, like if someone had like an incident, I would go to the tax appraisal's website and look up the address. Then you look at who owns the house, the lot number, stuff like that. And then from there, you can go to the county clerk's website. And some counties have it, some don't.
Right.
And you may have to go to the county clerk office yourself and go through, stacks and stacks of books and stuff. But once you have the name of the person who's currently owned the house, then you can go to the county clerk's house and then look up that name, and then you can find like deeds, tax liens, bill of sales, and some counties go back 100 years, some don't, and then you could use that. You can like write down like who owned the house previously from the other owner, and then you would write down names, and then once you write down names, you could go to the library, the local library, and start looking up old newspaper articles and trying to see who was born, who died. And then whenever you do an investigation, then you can use it as a way to get responses. So that's the way that I would do it.
Right. So I had a question and I lost it. It happens to me more times than none.
That's fine.
So, whenever you're in doing your research, how often do you come across a place that's had like a really horrible incident that's attached to it?
I haven't done any properties like that, but the Lawrence Hotel in downtown Dallas I think it was built in 1925, and they did have a lot of deaths there, and if you know downtown Dallas, there is WFAA is the Channel 8 news station that's right there beside it. Mm-hmm. And then they have like a video tower that's right behind it. So that side of the building gets like enormous amount of EMF. And so if you're in that building, you may think you have a paranormal incident because you're getting bombarded by EMF. So that's crazy, but.
So for the listeners that don't know, what kind of things can happen to you whenever you're getting bombarded by EMF?
You could hallucinate. You can get some people get nauseated and vomit, and you could get like anxiety, a constant anxiety, and you not be able to sleep for like hours. So that's not good at all.
Definitely. So we do deal with conspiracies. Do you think the new 5G technology might have the same uh, things go with it as regular EMF?
That's a good question. I don't know. We have to wait and see, what we get on that, because that's something that I've never even considered. But now that you mention it, yeah, we have to take that into account, because, like, we don't know how it's going to act, or how it's going to treat people, like, 6 months from now, a year, 2 years. We don't know.
Definitely. That's a complete different type of show right there, though.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things that I've asked other people. What is your take on Ouija boards?
I don't like them. I know that. I don't like them. I think because I preach this on, I shouldn't say preach. I say this on Pentax's website all the time, that if a lot of people don't believe in God or the devil, but just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it's not there. So whenever you do a Ouija board, you open yourself to stuff that's not in this world, and that's just my point of view. It doesn't make me right or wrong, but whenever you do that, you open yourself up. So if you open yourself up to something that's not of this world, then they're going to take advantage of it and use you as a vessel. And that's just the point of view I have. So,
right. Well, then if you open up yourself, wouldn't it be also a possibility that you go into a place and you're doing like EVP work? Wouldn't that also maybe open yourself up to things as well?
If you say stuff like, use me as your energy, or use me as a conduit, I think that's when you do it. So if you walk into a paranormal situation or investigation, and before you do that, you say whatever denomination you are, you say prayers, whatever, and then you just say, I want to accept it. I don't accept it, and I don't want you to use me as a vessel. So, and then you go do the investigation. So once you do that, but if you openly say it, then I think, that's just me, how I view it.
Definitely. That leads me into another question. What do you do to protect yourself before an investigation?
I was brought up in Christian. I was first brought up as a Catholic, and then I converted over to Christianity, and so I always say prayers before I do something like that. And then Tanya Moret, and I was really, really busy, so I'm still working. I work for a medical company, and so I'm still working 40 hours a week, and then I do my own podcast, Bigfoot Club, and then I've told you off the show that I'm actually writing a comic book as well. So right. I'm actually just really, really busy. I haven't done any paranormal investigations, but I've been asked to go on several, and I had to turn them down. But I plan to ramp back up as soon as Kendall gets back. So, to answer your question, no, I'm not doing anything right now.
So, have you ever been to some place that you felt unsafe? I'm not talking about like entities or demons or anything like that, but I know there's a lot of abandoned places where if a person goes into, then there could be other dangers that's not unsafe.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. On the Bigfoot Club podcast, I can't remember what episode it is, but it's called Brown Springs, Oklahoma. And there was a story. This is a really good one. There was a story of a lady in Gainesville, Texas, that was found and this is called Thackerville, Oklahoma. That's right behind, I think, the newly built casino there that borders the Oklahoma-Texas border. And there was a lady that was found up there with her legs bent backwards, and she was raped and killed, and she was disemboweled. And we heard the story, I think it was like in the 90s, maybe late 80s, early 90s, I can't remember. But we had heard the story on the internet. It was like me and some other Bigfoot researchers, and one of the I think Red River, like a Bigfoot yell.
Mm-hmm.
So we yelled back. I yelled back. I did a Bigfoot cry back. It responded. And so at the time, I had 2 colleagues with me, and then I had my cousin with me because he was like begging me to go do Bigfoot stuff, and I took him out, and he was like scared now, and so he's saying I think we should leave. And so that was that. After we left that place, I went back and I did research for the podcast, and I later learned that that the Dallas mob, in I guess in the 50s and 60s, used to dump bodies up there. And I didn't know that. So it had, that area had the most negative vibe that I've ever been at, paranormal or Bigfoot.
Right.
So that area is like crazy. I want to go back up there too. So
Yeah, it sounds pretty exciting. So you went in searching for one thing and then finding another.
yeah, it was crazy because I think I had Ken Marble. Ken Marble was one of the investigators that went up there with me, and we did a podcast probably like 3 podcasts ago, and I was interviewing him, and he was telling me about when we were up there, and I don't recall this at all. He says that because we were spread out walking on the river, and he said he was like toward the end. He said he heard laughing like coming from the tree line. And there's nobody out there, nobody in this area. And I said, what? And he was telling me about it. I said, I don't remember that. He goes, yeah, man. Because we heard laughing. It was me and your nephew's wife. We heard it. And I said, why didn't you say to anybody? Because I did. I go, well, I guess I didn't remember, but we heard stuff like that. And so somebody had posed a question to me about, and I thought it was interesting. One of the fans of the Bigfoot Club podcast was asking me, what if the EMF was affecting the Bigfoot? And I go, man, that's a great question. I never thought of that.
Yeah, that's something I would have never thought of.
So, because it would have caused, because like normally, because like that area was slightly populated. It had some, some trees and stuff. But that area like that, we wouldn't get Bigfoot stuff until like nightfall. So I don't know. This Bigfoot was like screaming back at us from the other side of the river. It was kind of crazy. So
sounds like it. So sorry. When my mind just went blank.
I do that a lot too, so.
Yeah, that's the one bad thing about doing live shows is trying to come up with things to say whenever try to fill in the blank. So when did you get started? What brought you into wanting to research Bigfoot and the paranormal? Was it whenever you was a kid or later on in life? Or?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I was born in 1970, so my dad took me to a drive-in in 76 or 77. I can't remember. Maybe 76, 77, and we were looking at the Legend of Boggy Creek,
right?
And I was terrified, but I was like interested completely, and so. But ever since then, man, I was like a huge fan, and I was like, I always dreamed of meeting Smokey Crabtree. So I'd always dreamed about meeting him. So I don't know. When I was a kid, I did a bunch of I checked out a bunch of Bigfoot books from Renee DeHanden and John Green, and I would do like book reports on it, and I would like draw pictures, and I was like so fascinated with it, and so. I do recall. I think I did ask the librarian to make copies for me on some articles and stuff.
Okay.
So that's kind of embarrassing, but because I wasn't able to check out books, and I didn't want to get made fun of, so I would ask her to do run copies for me so I could like read starts of books and stuff like that. So I did that, and once I did that, in the late 90s, I don't know, I was at work one day, and I was at work one day, and I typed in Bigfoot, and on the internet, and this was like 98, 99, and it brought up some articles and stuff, and then I typed in Texas Bigfoot, and so I didn't think I was going to find anything, and it was a Bigfoot conference in Ohio run by Don Keating. It was the 12th annual Bigfoot conference in Newcomerstown, Ohio, and it had a guy named Luke Gross, and it was like a little picture of him wearing a cowboy hat at this conference. And so for some reason it had his email address. So I emailed him. I go, hey man, how does one get involved in Texas Bigfoot? And so he emailed me back like in the next day. And I think he was in Missouri or something doing a Bigfoot deal. And he said he would be back in town for the next couple of days, and he'd reach out to me. So he reached out to me, and we talked on the phone for like 4 hours. And this was like I said, in 99. And he says, hey, I'm forming TBRC, and we're going to be meeting in East Dallas somewhere. So you want to join up? I said, yeah. So I was like one of the 12 original members of TBRC, and I got to join them, and we were just starting up a website, and because like before that, I'll say this: before that, there was nothing in Texas that had any website about Bigfoot until Luke Gross came along. So in my mind, he's like the grandfather of Texas Bigfoot. So I thought it was awesome. So once I got into that, I got into doing sighting reports, and we would get him on all hours of the night, and so it was just interesting stuff like that. I mean, we came up with ideas that I think right now that no one else was doing back then. So, like, we used to put up game cams everywhere. Game trackers that hunters use to find deer and like hog and stuff.
Almost definitely.
So we were putting that out. We were putting those out to try to catch Bigfoot and stuff. And I got to a point where, that stuff, because back then that stuff was really expensive. It was really expensive. So, I mean, now it's cheap, but back then, like in the 90s and the 2000s, it was expensive. So this guy had an idea. I can't remember who it was, but he had a handheld camcorder. And so, we ran out of game cams. So we decided to, like, let's just put it in a nook of a tree, and we'll just put it, it'd be ghetto, it'd be a ghetto one to do. So we ended up putting this game this handheld like in the tree. We went back and looked at the video, and it looked like something was like walking up on it, and we put it way in the woods where no one knew where it was at, and something walked up on it and was throwing branches in front of it. Trying to get the trigger to take a picture, take a flash.
Yeah.
And so we had the idea that I go, oh my God, these things can see it. They can see like the infrared beam.
Right.
And so I had the idea, if people would see this thing and they didn't want to see it, or it was coming behind their house and they didn't want to see it, I said, go to Walmart, buy some game cams, point them toward the woods, and you won't see this thing again.
That makes complete sense.
So, I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about that, like on podcasts or Bigfoot shows. I don't think anybody's ever talked about that. So,
I think I might have heard it on like the 90s Art Bell or something like that before. But
right on.
They hardly ever talk about it. But I don't think I've ever asked anybody this, but what is your take on, I'm sure you've heard of it, the Patterson-Gimlin film?
To me, that's the holy grail of Bigfoot stuff. So I look at that now, and I get shivers every time I look at it. And there is I'll tell you a quick story on this.
Okay.
I've always believed in that, and whenever because I was talking about Don Keating's Bigfoot conference up in Newcomerstown, that was the 12th annual one that I reached out to Luke. I went the next year to the 13th annual one, and so I went to that one, and I met up with a guy named Larry Lunn, and he was from He's from, I think, Northern California or Oregon. I can't remember. And he was an older guy. He was like in his late 50s, early 60s at the time. And he had like these albums and albums of Polaroids and pictures and stuff. So he was showing me Bluff Creek.
Okay.
He showed me pictures of Bluff Creek, and he said he went down. He knew Roger Patterson, he knew Bob Gimlin, and so he went down like a week after that. And he was taking pictures of that area where that Bigfoot went through, and he said that area, that creek bed that it went through, was volcanic ash. And volcanic ash is very dense, and you have to be a heavy animal, like a horse, to put footprints on that.
Right.
And he was like, they had, I think I recall him saying that they took a mathematician out there to measure like the length between each footstep, and they had determined it was like 7-8 feet tall. So I mean, it was a greater distance for anybody to like duplicate like a regular person.
Oh wow!
And so I wish I kept in contact with him, but it was amazing to meet him, and he showed me all these pictures, and I was a newbie at the time. I was trying to be a sponge, and I thought it was awesome that I got to meet him, and he talked about that story. So anytime someone asks me about the Roger Patterson stuff, I believe it 100%. So
definitely. So I've heard, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that I forget which one it was on their deathbed said that it was all a hoax.
I think that's probably Roger Patterson, or not Roger Patterson, but Bob Hieronymus, I think.
Okay.
So I don't know, I got to go back and look at that, but I don't know for sure. But I know there was a guy, Bob Hieronymus, that was claiming that he was wearing the suit. But I don't know. Larry Lund says otherwise.
Right.
So
and the details are pretty much in the video. I mean, you can see the articulature of like the muscles and the way that everything swings, and I mean, you can even tell that it's female.
I don't really endorse this guy, MK Davis. He does a lot of video stuff, and he looks a lot of footage and stuff. But he's broken that down pretty good, and he shows a lot of that stuff. So,
have you it's been a while since I've done any research on Bigfoot. Have you came across any video evidence that from like other people that might be similar to that film, or any good evidence lately?
There's the closest one that I can remember, and I'm getting this guy's name right. Hold on, let me look it up real quick.
Okay.
But prior to me joining the TBRC, Lou Gross, my mentor, had interviewed this guy named Danny Sweeten. And if you look up Danny Sweeten Bigfoot video, I thought that was pretty real. And the story on this one is that from what I recall, that he had some property that he was using to go shoot weapons, and he had a camcorder that he was going to record himself shooting these weapons. And so he was walking out to this property. It was in East Texas, and he was walking out to them, and I think he came across a Bigfoot that was bleeping, and the Bigfoot jumped up, pushed him, and he did a flip, and it knocked out his teeth, and the Bigfoot took off running. And so this guy got up, grabbed his camcorder, and got the tail end of this Bigfoot running through the woods. And so if you looked that video up, it looks pretty real to me. But it's like old VHS stuff, and so it's kind of choppy.
Right.
But the bad thing about that guy is that I think he got so much notoriety on that he couldn't duplicate a second one, so he faked the second one, and then his credibility went out the window.
Wow, I'll definitely have to look up the first one.
Yeah,
I think of it.
So yeah, that was actually a pretty good one. So
awesome. So we've got a few minutes left of the show. Is there any social media or email or anything that anybody can get a hold of you at to contact?
Yes. I want. Why did I say that? Anybody can reach out to me if they have like any other stories, like Bigfoot stories or anything other than Bigfoot stories, like flying hominoids or chupacabras or whatever. They can reach me at robertjdominguez@yahoo.com. I'm also on Facebook. Bigfoot Club podcast is also on Facebook, so it's Bigfoot Club 1, and we're on Twitter as Bigfoot Club 1 too. 1 as well. So, and we're on all the platforms. We're on iHeart, iTunes, Google Play. We're actually on Alexa too. So if you say Alexa, play Bigfoot Club podcast, it actually plays it. So
that's awesome. So
yeah,
I've got one final question. Why is it, do you think, that when hunters say that they've got Bigfoot in their gun sights, they can't shoot?
Yeah, and we didn't talk about this, but there was a guy that actually I did that. I did that too. He actually is a good friend of mine. His brother was a hunter, and he was a big dude. He was like 6'7", and I think he had a 30-06, and he was in a tree stand, and this Bigfoot came up and started looking at him, and I asked him. I said, "Why didn't he shoot it?" He said, "It looked like a homeless guy with a lot of hair." That's what he said. He goes, "I look like a homeless guy." And so this guy was so scared that when I went to his house, I drove like 4 hours to his house, and whenever I got there, he didn't open the door. He like cracked the door open with the chain on and slid a map out to me and said, "You can go out there yourself. I'm not going out there." So he was pretty scared, and I asked him that question. I go, "How come you didn't shoot it? I mean, you had a gun. Why didn't you do it?" And he says, "It looked like a guy. I didn't want to do it."
Wow.
I know.
I don't think I could bring myself to shoot it if it looked enough.
Yeah, I couldn't either because I used to carry a weapon out when I first got into Bigfoot, and I don't do it now. If I go out now, I don't even carry a knife. So I think they know when you're there to make when you want to harm them, and whenever you you want to go out there and just experience it. So I think they actually know it. So
right.
I don't do it, and I don't advocate it, but in order for this thing to be documented and recognized by science, you're going to have a body, and I don't agree with it, but it's just going to have to be that way.
Definitely. So we're going to keep you on past this. We're going to go ahead and end the show now. So
okay.
Want to thank
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
And it was awesome to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on our show.
I appreciate it.